Hi, y'all. Welcome to Life's a Riddle. I'm Rochelle. I promised that I would come back today and tell you who had filed locally for our local races before the deadline tomorrow. I also wanted to address the topic that was unexpected yesterday with what happened with the ICE agent and a lady named Renee Good, and just kind of address how substantial that is. And I think it's time we use the word fascism and really understand what it means. And I've had these conversations with friends personally, and some to be a term that's used so often, people just don't know what it means. And the whole foundation of fascism is based on the fact that some are better than others. Um, about 10% is who they believe is the good portion, and that only those people should be allowed to run government, or basically be allowed to have the nicer things in our society. The way it works is it's a segregationist movement. It tries to separate good guys and bad guys, and it convinces people to speak negatively, like, the socialist or the radical left, and you start to label people and dehumanize. And it's based off isolation. It's almost like an abusive relationship. It's like everyone is bad except for me. I'm the one that's good for you. And in Trump, we not only have like a fascist leader, it's not just our authoritarianism. So these words big, y'all, gets me. But we have totaler, to, totaler, I can't say it. They want total control. They don't want to just tell you how to live in society. They want to tell you how to think. And they want you to think that the radical left, the socialists, they're horrible people, and they dehumanize and they break people down. And that's the segregationist point of the movement, to divide, so that one segment can exploit the population, our tax money, our labor, our works. They work for us, but they exploit those things to profit for themselves, and then they take away from what's helping common people. So they're using our tax money to invade Venezuela, to take over oil, to put that in personal offshore bank accounts. Things like this are happening while they're simultaneously, not providing health care for citizens in our own country. So this isn't unique. Also, I don't just know this stuff. Like, I read and I watch a lot of Heather Cox Richardson, which I highly recommend, to find out like the historical elements of what's going on. And I stopped long ago watching the news, and I seek out people who can tell me what's happening from an unbiased political opinion, but also can relate it to other times in history, because I'm a firm believer that we've been through all of this before. Like, we've overcome it before, we'll overcome it again. So, parallels to what happened yesterday in Minnesota and what's happened in the past. As soon as I heard what had happened, before I even knew her name, my artist brain went into art, of course, and I thought of the song "For Dead in Ohio." Also thought of the movie V for Vendetta and the girl who was shot in The Mask. And elements like this send me down the rabbit hole of, okay, so most of this art's based on life and events, and find where these things came from. And so there's this universal loss of children narrative throughout our history that tends to change the way people look at each other. And you see that in the movie V for Vendetta when the little girl was shot. an example of that is like Uncle Tom's Cabin. That was written in 1852, and it's the loss of children that led the white women to empathize with the state, the powers of man taking away children. And those white women who were in their own struggle of grieving the loss of children due to diseases and stuff. So it's this empathy, this underlying empathy that I think is the strand that always pulls us back into this reality whenever the world is so divided. I always brought up the issue with George Floyd and how it always just blew my mind that people would watch that and not empathize with Mr. Floyd, but would rather empathize with the police officer when they would never be in that person's shoes if they're not a police officer. So you are George, so why couldn't you look at him and see you? And it's because he was a black man. I think what happened yesterday is one of those moments where white women look and see themselves. White people start to see themselves in a situation, and whenever you see state violence used against people, that's not American. We don't pay our tax money to a government to kill us because we disagree. Disagreement is one of the fundamental rights of being an American, and we're in a time in our country where we really have to take a look at ourselves and say, is this what we're going to be? Or are we going to do like we did in 1963 whenever there was a church bombed and those 4 little girls died? And I remember my dad saying, he remembered his father saying, like, this just isn't right. Like, whenever the loss of children is involved, it's like the Black Lives Matter movement was founded by mothers who were mourning the loss of their children and Trayvon Martin. And I think that one of the things that we really need to understand in this world is, like James Baldwin said, that they're all our children. And it shouldn't take someone who looks like you to make you care about something horrible happening because you feel safe enough in your identity that it won't happen to you. It shouldn't be acceptable to live in a society where these things happen to anyone. So this is a very big time right now. We need to look at ourselves, we need to look at each other, and we need to see the humanity, and we need to break away from this fascist mentality and this division and the victim blaming. That's throughout history as well. Nixon tried to blame the victims of Kent State on those protesters, and the same thing is happening here. And I go all the way back to Donald Trump and Heather Heyer and him saying there's bad on both sides. Well, there's a good side and a bad side here. And the irony, the human loss of Renee Good, but the fact that her name was literally Good. So, whose side are you on? Are you on the side of the good, or are you on the side of fascism and totalitarian? Still can't say it. But you know what it is. That's not us, America. We gotta do better. All of us speak up.